whole career, I've sort of been playing catch up, but what it's done is it's put a big chip on my fire, and I've known that I have to be serious about this. And slowly over the course of time, I sort of caught up to where maybe I should have been in life, and now I actually feel like I'm, as a 58-year-old, creative director, I feel like I kind of caught up,
You're listening to Creative Leadership with Heart, a podcast that inspires people to take action and be the leader they were born to be. I'm Coach Rico, and I'm known for coaching and training executives, leaders, founders, and high performers at Fortune 100 businesses, startups, and more. I'm here to answer your questions about leadership and personal development while also asking you questions that can unlock your untapped potential.
Hello, welcome to another great episode of Creative Chutzpah. My name is Leonard Samuels. I've got my co-host Rico Nazal and our guest for today, the legendary Peter Stark with AV Print. He is the VP head of print. He is also one of the principal founders of Bond, not James Bond, but Bond the agency themselves. And he is also a husband and a father. Welcome, Peter, to the show. Yay. We're going to kick it right off and ask you exactly who you are from your own words. Please tell the viewers your origin story.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Leonard. Thanks for having me, Rico. Sorry, what was the question?
Who are you and how did you get into this business?
Yeah. Well, I am Peter Stark, indeed. I have been doing this should be prepared here, but for about 25 years, I guess. I started late in life. I went to school when I was in my late 20s and took a couple of design classes and liked it enough to apply to a BFA program in New York City, which was kind of the kickstart of my career. But as fate would have it, we moved to New York and I skipped out on school and found my first job instead and started my career at a little place called Bauda Design in New York City on Canal Street.
Oh yeah, I know Canal Street. You can get some great bags on Canal Street for like $5.
Yes, you can. And batteries and sunglasses, and
everything,
pinwheels and whatever you need, man. So that was sort of where I cut my teeth, and we did a bit of what I do now. Some movie stuff. We worked with Miramax back in the day and Blue Note Records. So I was doing music and movies, which was kind of the dream job for like a junior designer, working in a company of 3 people. And did that for about a year. And then we had our first baby. And realized we couldn't afford to live in New York. So we scooted out of New York as quickly as we could and landed in Vermont, where I spent 5 years kind of doing what I'm doing here as well, but a little bit more diverse with some entertainment, some snowboard design, some beer label design, and living in an old creamery building and sort of living the dream and being a gardener and getting back to my hands dirty and all that. And but then my wife decided at some point she was ready to move, and I said, I'll go anywhere you want to go, as long
as the right answer, by the way.
Right, that was the right and the wrong answer, because I said that the only place I don't want to go is LA.
Oh,
like, let's go to LA then. And so here we are. We moved here about 20 years ago. And my first gig here was at a place called Art Machine, which is a familiar name. They still are in business. But when I was at Art Machine, it was a smaller place. We're in Culver City. There was about 40 of us. It's sort of a boutique shop that did a really great body range of work. But I think the Friday before they announced they were going to merge with Trailer Park, I left and we sold our house. I quit my job. We kind of like just checked out and did that for about 2 months, one summer. And then when I came back, I landed at BLT. I spent about 5 or 6 years at BLT. Eventually had a pod there, and sort of it's where I got my start as a creative director. And then from there, I went to partner up with the four other owners of Bond, and I was a partner and as you said, one of the founders there. Worked there for about 7 years. I helped build that place from like 6 of us the first day to about 160 of us when I left. Super grateful for that opportunity and all the experience I got there. But about 5 years ago, a month before the pandemic hit, I came over and joined Chad Miller and Brent Buckman and Tommy and the crew here at AV Squad, and they were doing incredible AV and trailer work, and they had some other divisions, but they did not do print. And so they hired me to start the print team. So it was a team of 1 on day 1. And then I quickly partnered up with a guy named Brian Lozano, who is one of our creative directors here. And he was my first hire. And then the rest is sort of history. Through the last 4 or 5 years of fuckery, we've managed to build a really nice shop with really amazing people. And we've got a great client list, and we're doing exactly what we want to do. And, and having fun with it. So that's kind of my 25-year history in 5 minutes.
Nice. Sounds like living the dream.
Yeah. I mean, there are days where it feels like a really great dream, and there are other days where it feels like a fever dream, but you take the good with the bad. And I think, this has been an extraordinary 4 years, 4.5 years since we started this, starting with the pandemic and then the strikes and, all that. But the bottom line is I come in every day and do what I want to do, surrounded by a group of really amazing people. And so in that regard, yeah, it's definitely a dream job.
So I wanted to go back. But thank you for that, for summing it up. I want to dig into some things now. So you said you got started later in life. If you want to share, if you can share, I'd love to hear. I'm sure people would like to understand it. And what was it at that point in time that you decided to enroll and to be a Bachelor of Fine Arts? Like, what was that? What was the driver of that? Was there something? Because most folks, they can pinpoint a movie, a book, a song, or something that kind of was like, oh, I want to do this for a living.
Yeah.
What was that for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, I graduated with a marketing degree, and it was about a day after graduation where I started thinking about and I was, a 21-year-old kid or 22-year-old kid at that point. And I was like, what does that actually look like? I mean, I'd spent 4 years getting this degree without actually envisioning what my life would look like after I graduated. And the first thing I thought was, well, I got to go buy a suit. And then I'm going to go apply to Pillsbury and 3M and Target. And because I'm from the Midwest, from Minneapolis. And all the local, big marketing places where you'd go to be a marketing guy, right? And the thought of that was just shockingly depressing. And I just was like, oh, well, I can't really see myself doing that, And so I had to quickly, because my parents had helped me get through school, and obviously they had their expectations. And after school, I went to live at home, and so I was having to kind of face them and what's next, Peter, and so in lieu of really having an actual plan, I thought, what can I do to sort of make that, that seems responsible and seems cool and is adventurous. And because I was starting to I had my junior year in college, I'd done a study abroad, and I was starting to get that sort of bug to actually go and actually explore and find myself a little bit. And, I somehow heard about the Peace Corps and was like, that sounds like a legitimate thing to do. And that buys me at least 2-3 years to try to figure things out. And, I got in and ended up living in the Caribbean for 2.5 years and living in a very remote compo with like no running water, no electricity. I had a hammock for a bed. I had a thatch roof. I built my own bar to, you know, and I had a bamboo chair, and like, it was like an opportunity really for me to sort of clear everything that was familiar to me, and really sort of get to know a different part of myself. And through the course of that time, I read a lot, I wrote a lot, I had a lot of time to think, I had a lot of time to sit on the beach. I met some extraordinary people. And so when I came back from that experience, I was 25 and still knew I didn't want to be a marketer. And
Coming from the Peace Corps, now how do I sell these?
Right. So there was, you know, and oddly, my first business experience was I went to the Peace Corps, and because I was in the business program, I taught a group of 25 or 30 women how to tie-dye t-shirts and how to sell those t-shirts across, because I was in the Dominican Republic and there's a big tourist market there. And so that was really my first like venture into the unknown, right? Doing something that was like, oh, this sounds cool. I think I want to do that. Fuck it, let's do it, you know? And so I recently had like a 35-year interview with like an ex Peace Corps person. And they asked me, what did I take out of that experience and how does it relate to what I do? So I'm sort of coming back around to things, hopefully here. But it really, what it did was it taught me in my own heart of hearts that you can do basically whatever you want to do. As crazy as it might sound, if you put your heart to something, you put your mind to something, there's nothing to be afraid of, right? And so, long story long, when I came back, I spent 5 or 6 more years just kind of, I hope this is not offensive to anybody, but I was fucking off for about 5 or 6 years and enjoying life for sure, traveling. I was a ski lift operator. I did a lot of traveling. But then when I was in my late 20s, I said I started late. I think I was 29 and I got married to my wife of soon to be 30 years, Miriam. And she sort of inspired me to start thinking about maybe I should get my shit together and actually do something with my life, you know, that was
29, you say it so casually, but 29 at that time really was something.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I'm shocked. Yes.
Yeah, no. I mean, trust me, I heard that like, dude, you're 29. Like,
yeah.
You know, and the crazy thing was my wife decided she wanted to go get her master's degree, which is a little bit more like respectable as a 29-year-old. And I was like, we're going to Vestal, New York, where there's nothing happening. And I'm not going to sit here for a year. So I'm like, I'm going to take a couple of classes. So I took a design 101 course and sat in with a bunch of 17 and 18-year-olds. And but I really put my mind to it. I was like, well, we were paying our own way. And so it was like, I'm actually going to apply myself. I didn't know the first thing about Photoshop. I literally didn't know anything about anything. And, you know, and so I took a couple of classes. One previous thing is oddly enough, I'd done an internship with a graphic designer in Minneapolis who did menu designs. And he had all his stuff on little floppy disks, and he had thousands of these disks, and he would show me what he was doing. And I was just like awestruck. This guy was doing such a cool thing, like making menus that everybody would see out in the world. And I was like, well, that seems pretty cool. Like, but I didn't really do anything. I just kind of watched him and shadowed him. But then I went to school and I started actually learning Photoshop. And I was literally going to Barnes and Noble, buying books called Photoshop for Dummies and like Illustrator for Dummies, and literally learning on the fly as I sat in with these 19-year-old kids who had been working on computers since they were, 5 or whatever. So I was way behind the curve. But I took 2 classes and then my wife graduated. I'm like, okay, so the next step for me was to actually go and get a degree in this. And going back to where I started, we went to New York. I got accepted to FIT in New York, which was a fashion school, but they also had a design program. And thought that would be my road ahead for a couple of years. But in the meantime, that summer, we got there a little bit early. So I had a briefcase with all my stuff in it, weighed about 50 pounds. And this was really before like people were doing email. Definitely people weren't doing this. People were actually walking around and knocking on doors, and that's how long ago that was. And
when you had the acrylic portfolios and all that stuff.
Everything was physical. And the funny thing is, I had this giant book filled with nothing. Like I hadn't done anything in my career that really would fill a briefcase, but I put everything I'd done in art classes. I was a designer at the school newspaper, and and whatever I had, I put it in that case and started hucking it around New York, and like taking the subway and this and that. And I went to maybe 10 or 12 places, sent my resume to about 50 places, and got zero responses. And nobody wanted to talk to me. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to school. And my wife actually said, can I see your cover letter? And she looked at it and she's like, this looks like it came out of like cover letters for dummies. And it probably did. But she's like, there's nothing in this that says anything about you. Right. And she's like, why don't you just write some radical cover letter? Just be crazy and see what happens then. And so I wrote this letter, and all I remember about the letter was saying, I wanted the first sentence after a couple of edits, when my wife kept saying, come on, dude, you can do better than that. Like I said, I want to change the world with my design. And I was like, and I said to Miriam, I'm like, this is the most outrageous, like hyperbolic, like statement ever. I have no right to. She's like, fuck it, just do it. And so I sent that letter out, and I got 2 responses. And one said, thank you for sending your letter, but we're not looking. The other said, I just want to I want to talk to the guy who's going to change the world with his design. And you're from Minnesota. I'm from Minnesota. Come on in, we'll talk to you. I went in, we hit it off, and the guy's name was PR Brown. He's still a legend in this industry. And he gave me a shot, and that was it. And so at that point, I was 30 years old. I was a junior designer making 30 grand. I had to negotiate for the extra 5 grand. He offered me 25. I took 30.
Come on, Peter. Yeah, you nail that. You get the extra.
I know, man. I know. And I was thinking about that. Like, how much do I actually need per week to get by in New York? And bottom line was, it was enough for my wife and I, because she was also making about 30 grand. But then the minute we had our kid, it was like, well, that's not enough. So you
had a lot to fight for at that time.
So I guess to answer your question, like, it was really a series of events that was extraordinarily non-linear. Like, I did not, as a kid, go, this is what I want to be. I was not a prodigy. I was seriously, like, because then even when I was like a junior designer, my boss was 5 years younger than me, and he had worked at Capitol Records as a creative director, started his own agency, graduated from the best design school in Minneapolis, and I was like none of that, And so, like, my whole career, I've sort of been playing catch up. But what it's done is it's put a big chip on my fire, and I've known that I have to be serious about this. Mm-hmm. And slowly over the course of time, I sort of caught up to where maybe I should have been in life, and now I actually feel like I'm, as a 58-year-old, creative director, I feel like I kind of caught up, but that's been a really helpful thing for me in terms of like inspiring me to take this seriously and really kind of work my ass off.
Dude, thank you so much for sharing that. Like, if we didn't go back, we would have missed out on that amazing story. And the things that I took out of that were discovering resilience, right? And knowing what you want and actually taking the time. So you might have thought like you were fucking around for whatever, but I look at it as like you were taking the time to actually, we spend 70 to 100 years on this planet. And how much of that do you want to be doing something you don't like? Right. So like, it took you maybe 5-6 years, which is a drop in the bucket in the grand scheme of things, and now like to where you are really loving what you do and enjoying going to work. So was it worth it? This is a rhetorical question, but was it worth it to take that extra time? Or, you could be a marketing executive at Target right now, wearing a suit to work every day, right? Talking to like these random brands. that could have been the alternative.
That could have been. I think about that a lot. And I'm so grateful.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing that story. I hope a lot of people should probably go back and re-listen to that, because it is a non-traditional, non-linear. But would you be where you are if you didn't take that path?
No.
Yeah, I'm still like, my jaw is just open from being a junior at 30 is wild, bro. And to make so much accomplishment, because, you know, it's, again, not to just like build you up or anything, but just me when I was a junior designer, even moving towards an art director and all that stuff, I had already heard whispers of Peter Stark through the halls, at the Clio's, at all these different places. And you're shaking your head no, but yes, people were like, Peter Stark, Peter Stark, Peter Stark, Peter Stark. Go talk to Peter Stark. If you can, go talk to Peter Stark. So, you know, it meant nothing more to me at the time, because I was just like literally just a random, you know, designer. But for people today that are getting their career started at the age of 30, what is your, you know, basic like mantra to let them know it is okay to get a late start in your career? It is okay to change professions and directions and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I have a tattoo on my wrist that says now or never, right? And I think that like at some point in my life, I just realized that, you know, because and I still do this today, right? Like you go, oh, I want to learn how to play the guitar, but God, that's going to take me like 5 years. And then you go, well, in 5 years, you could either be a really good guitar player, or you could be wishing you'd learn how to play the guitar. And here I am wishing I've wanted to learn how to play the guitar for longer than I've been a designer, you know, but, and I never have, you know, because I just haven't made that leap. So I would just say that like, it doesn't really matter where you are in your life at all. It's just when you make that choice that you're going to actually dive in and really be passionate about something. And at that point, there's no stopping you. It doesn't matter if you're 30 or 15 or 50, you know? So, I mean, I'm one of the older guys in this profession. There's a lot of young people that surround me, but you know, it really is. Age is so irrelevant, you know, in terms of like, it's your spirit, it's your energy, it's how much passion you have for something that defines you, right? So, you know, I think that was the thing, is if I would have gotten started at this as a 22-year-old, I may have just taken everything for granted, and I may be at the same place I'm at right now had I gotten started 10 years earlier, or I may not never have gotten here, because I may not have ever been as passionate and as committed and as motivated as I was when I did start late. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but.
And you seeing where you are now, you're able to see the forest past the trees more so. To be a designer and get through all that in the 2000s is like being at Capitol Records in the 80s, right? It was just crazy all the time, I'm sure. What has this industry been like for you, and how have you been able to navigate your work-life balance?
Yeah, the work-life balancing is real. Like I would say that as I get older, hopefully gain a little bit of wisdom. You know, my life is more balanced now, in spite of this fact that, you know, I have more responsibility now than I did as a younger designer. Like I am much more conscious about that balance. And, you know, it's important. It's always been important for me to lead by example, you know, and I've never been a dude who just sits behind and I've worked for a dude like this, and I won't name any names, but, you know, just sit behind my desk and check stocks all day as everyone around me is doing all the work. But, you know, so I've always tried to lead by example. And one of the things that I learned the hard way as a young designer, because I was so motivated and I was playing catch up, was I probably spent my wife would say I'm still doing it, but I probably spent the first 15, 20 years of my career working too much, you know, and not being as balanced as I should have been in hindsight, you know. So I made not be the best person to give any real wisdom on like work-life balance. I know that like this or this industry has changed a lot, and back in the day, it may have been where I was, but like growing up in LA and at Art Machine, and then particularly BLT and Bond, like if I was doing an overnighter or if I was there at midnight, I was definitely not the only one there.
Yeah.
So there was this sort of, this, Leonard, and Rico, you probably know this as well. It's, there was sort of a camaraderie in it, almost like I don't know the right word, but like, it was almost like a pride in like, oh yeah, I did an all-nighter last night,
It's a badge of honor, right?
A badge of honor, right? Like, and it was part of that. I mean, yeah, there was just a lot of other people around me doing the same thing, and when I look back at those people all did really well in their careers. I'm not sure how they did in their lives, but they did really well in their careers, and it did help me go further faster in my career, but at what cost, right? And I think, Leonard, you and I talked about this in our original conversation too. Like, there's always you always have to sort of, that balance is like, all right, well, this is what I gained from being like a workaholic, but what did I sacrifice, right? And when you have a family and you're not seeing your family, that's a significant cost to that. So that's been a constant like challenge for me to stay balanced and to try to rebalance every now and then. And but I'm certainly not the authority on how to do that.
Has there been any like mantras or anything, or just anything that from your past that just feels like that helps ground you when you get that over stress and you're able to recognize, okay, I haven't been me in a while?
My wife has been a really good sort of a barometer for me. Like,
shout out to Miriam, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and this is no joke. Like, I would not be here at all without her support and encouragement, and so, but yeah, because I could, back in the day when I was really into this, I could work 36 hours and I was still energized at the end of that. I mean, I was tired physically, but I was into it. Like, I was so into it. I loved what I was doing so much, but then you go home and that weekend you sleep all weekend, and your significant other, your family's just like, the fuck, right? Like, what are we getting out of this, And so that was always a good like indication. And a mantra, like, I don't know. That's a good one. I'm not sure I've had a mantra. It's the mantra I do have, which I'm not sure it has anything to do with, like, is the universe provides, right? Like, that's something that I say and feel and deeply like believe in. And, it's like, it's really been tested a few times in my life and my career, and particularly these 4.5 years since we started AV Print, because there were some moments where it was very touch and go. Like, a month in, we all went home. Nobody knew how to do the work from home thing, like 4.5 years ago. We figured it all out. We were brand new in a company. I didn't even really know a few of the people I was working with very well. I had to get to know them, through Zoom and through Teams and all that. So, and then that the strikes happened, and it's like, well, shit, we were like 2 years old. It's like, this is trouble, and I saw agencies that had been around for a long time going under, or letting, half their staff go or whatever. And we survived that, and we actually thrived during that. And it was like, so that is a mantra that has nothing to do with work-life balance, but it is something that sort of keeps me going, is just knowing that, like, if you put, like I said earlier, if you put your mind and heart and fully jump in, you're going to be okay. That's my experience.
So to follow up on that, right? So how has the industry evolved, or has it, from those times, right? Where, the badge of honor was like everyone in in a room on the box till 2, 3, 4 a.m. Right. And it was like there was almost like a camaraderie and suffering together, but doing great work. So
Yeah.
how has the industry changed or not?
I mean, it's such we could talk for days on that, right? In so many ways it's changed, but like, I just to give a real, like an example, and I won't name names or whatever, but like one of the places that I worked at, I heard the story of the first big job that helped break them as an agency, where they were hired by a big studio to create 2 pieces of art, and they gave them 2 months and $250,000 to create 2 pieces of art, and they were beautiful. You would recognize them. They're still like 20 odd years later. There's still these iconic pieces of art. So they really did do an amazing job on it. But I think to like we have wonderful clients, right? And clients are faced with so many challenges, and they do the best they can to work with us and this and that. But that idea of like 2 months, $250,000 for round one has evolved into, a round of comps plus a couple rounds of revisions for 25 grand. And that first round of comps should be at least 50 comps. And then, revisions rounds after that. And so, and then, by the way, we need that in 2 weeks, right? So like, just from that point of view, like the process has really gotten very condensed and granted, the shop that did the 2 pieces of art in 2 months, they were a very small shop. And now, I've been part of BLT where there were 300 people and Bond was, 160 people or whatever. Our print team right now is 35 people. So,
That's really good. By the way,
we're getting there. Like we're not in a rush to be big. That's not our point. We just want to be good. We just want to like compete. So, but like that trunk, that sort of like narrowing down of like how quickly things move, right? And and also like we'll ingest like 50,000 images at the beginning of a job. So we sometimes spend more time just getting our assets in line before and then we'll spend a couple, 2-3 days building something after spending a week just getting, so like that 2-3 weeks gets narrowed down even further. And it's so the speed that things happen is absolutely different. I think the process of like, there have been some game-changing moments, right? Like Photoshop was a game changer. We don't even remember this industry before Photoshop, but it existed, and Photoshop was like a cheat tool. People were like, oh, that's not real art. Like, no, and I'm not going to use Photoshop. And when I first got into this, Photoshop was kind of a new thing. And so everybody was, it had been around for a little while, but like, so I really have only been in this industry post Photoshop, but I heard stories about what it was like. And then Photoshop came around and changed everything. And then, that's been evolving. And now here we are faced with like AI, which is going to be as bigger of a sea change, and so there's these sort of generational things that happen that change the industry, and you look back and go, oh, that changed it like that. But then there's lots of other things that have sort of happened, it's sort of like a Game of Thrones where you see all of this moving and shifting, not only with the studios and the studio heads and, the Amazons all of a sudden are doing design and entertainment and, and it's like, so it's shifted that way. And there's just constant movement right now. And this business I think the money flowed a lot heavier and back in the day. And so you had more time, you could put more resources into things, you could sit and think and concept and, play and explore and fail. And now it's just like, oh man, there's really not a whole lot of time to experiment and fail. You kind of gotta, and so not to skirt your question at all, but there's so many things that have changed about this business. Streaming, like, our actual business changed during the pandemic, right? Because nobody was going to theaters. And so I sort of like, my wheelhouse was more theatrical and movies. I had done some TVs, and so when I landed here, after Bond, where we did HBO, we did TV, but we did mostly theatrical. And I came here and it was like, that was kind of the intention. Then all of a sudden we're working with, and gratefully we were working with the Netflixes and the HBOs and really doing more streaming and that type of thing. So, and that's been industry wide, but it's been interesting in my own personal experience how I have sort of gravitated towards that, as most of us have, because that's how the business is sort of shifting, So, well, yeah.
Having such a, sorry to cut you off, and having such a breadth of life experience. What is your vision for AV? For this new team that has been growing.
Yeah. I laughed at that because, I had a vision when we started this place, and it was very clear, very defined. And, through the course of the first few years, we sort of got there, and then the last year or so, the last thing I want to do anywhere I'm at, and this has always been the case, is rest on my laurels or just be satisfied, right? I think the minute that I'm satisfied with what I'm doing is probably the day that I just check out and go and retire and travel and change my life, but so that motivation of always striving for the next big thing, what's the next step that I can take, and what can we do as a team to, the last 6 to 12 months or so, I recognized about a month ago that it had sort of gotten a little fuzzy. We'd accomplished a lot of the things that, we had set ourselves up, like we had built this place by this place, I mean the AV print team. Right. AV Squad has existed and been a powerhouse for 20 plus years, but we're still new, we're still young, and we're still building. And we'd gotten to a point where we were really a functioning, capable, fun shop that was competing. And that was the original goal. And so then it was like, what's next? And I realized I hadn't really personally defined that. So I started having conversations with the core team here and some of the team leaders on the print side, asking them that question. And then that it would inevitably bounce back. Well, that's a great question, but what's your vision? So I actually sat down about a month ago and wrote my vision. And I'm not going to share the entire vision here, but what was really helpful was that I sort of redefined and re-energized what I'm doing here, what I want to do here, what we want to do here, right? And what I realized and recognized in the vision was that there's fundamentally, it hasn't changed. Like the vision is still to compete, produce the highest level of art and service. And there are days where I'd say service and art, because I actually was taught this years ago and it was disappointing at the time, but now I've really sort of learned to sort of appreciate that we are a service business that does art. And I think a lot of people come into this going, I'm going to be an artist, and it is artistic what we do, but the fundamental product that we offer is service. And so in the best service, it's supported by great art, right? Because what we're doing is art. But so anyway, it's offering the best service, the best art, and creating that. And this is the one that's sort of new in my career now, in a way that where we can still maintain a work-life balance. That's part of my actual statement. The work-life balance thing is a part, and I summed it up, and I don't have it in front of me, but I basically summed it up in a longish sentence of what we want to do here, what I think we want to do. And then I offered it out to, the 35 other people and said, please give me your thoughts on this. And if this resonates, cool. Or if you want to add to that, because it really, to me, like, we are defined by every single person. All 35 of us have an ownership, you know, in our experience here. And
yeah, look at you, a man of the people. Feedback and everything. You know, that's just telling them like this is how it is.
well, yeah, that's not my style. For
Yeah.
sure, not my style. And to a fault, I think sometimes. Like when I started doing this, I literally wanted everybody to be part of every decision. Then I realized you can't get anything done that way. And so I've had to learn through the course of my career in doing this that there are times where it's makes sense and it's efficient and it's like productive actually to get people's point of view. And there are other times where I just got to roll with, you know,
Yeah, that's why you're in the seat, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, you just want people to feel like they're part of the process, so they buy into it. Because
well, yes, especially when it's like creating a vision for this place, because there's only so much that that I can influence everybody's day-to-day experience here, right? And if people are coming in and their experience is not happy or not healthy or not, there's no balance or whatever, and that's going to drag the energy down of the whole team, right? So I firmly believe that, like, you know, we all add or take away energy from the group. And so, you know, if I'm going to share my vision, I would love to think that everybody that is working with us also has their own vision. And it may be, in their particular case, it might just be their personal vision. This is what I want from this experience at AV Print. But for some of the more senior people, I'd love for them to start thinking about it. Well, this is what we want as a team, you know, and to be a part of that group vision. And hopefully our group vision aligns with people's personal visions. So, yeah, so the man of the people thing is real. It's, you know, that I, you know, this is, I'm not, you can edit this out, but like, you know, I don't think I'm alone in saying that, like, about every other day I have imposter syndrome. Like, what is it about me that gives me the right to make decisions?
I think it's the hair. You got great hair.
Well, thank you. But aside from the hair, what is it that gives me like this platform and this forum and makes my opinion, you know, more important or more valid or more relevant than anybody else's opinion? And the truth is, like, experience, you know, and talent and all that, but like from like just a subjective point of view and how, you know, nothing really. And so, like, it's really important to me to engage and to get people to be involved in this process that we're creating here, you know. So that I guess that if that makes me a man of the people, then I'll take that.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy you mentioned like imposter syndrome, but yeah, like that, I would ask the opposite. It's not what have you done to have that voice and platform. It's, you know, the quite opposite. What have you done to not have that? And you've been, like you said, you've been doing this for 25 plus years. So what makes you feel like you don't have the ability to say these things? And it's rhetorical. You don't have to answer that. I mean, the 25 plus years and the proof that you've done this multiple times everywhere you've gone shows that you're pretty good at what you do.
Yeah, look, therapy's helped me, and my wife has helped me, and conversations with really amazing people have helped me to be able to own that and not be like, oh, you know, like whatever, like, just so I'm not. It doesn't do anybody any good to deny your talent like that. That is, like, I come from the Midwest, and I can't remember exactly what they call it, but there's a very strong thing in the Midwest where you don't want to stand out, right? You don't want to stand above the crowd. You don't want to stand out or whatever. And so that's deeply ingrained in me. But the truth is, like, it's not that I don't deserve to have a voice. It's how do I engage everybody's voice? Because I recognize myself in some of the younger designers, and I recognize in I've learned through the years that great ideas and great creativity and answers and solutions come from just about anyone, anywhere, anytime. It does it. And look, some people have gotten really good at it and can repeat that over and over again. And you lean into those people, but like to disregard or to not pay attention to everybody's point of view, you're just missing an opportunity. So I guess it's not that I don't feel like I deserve to be making decisions. It's that I think a lot of other people deserve to be a part of that conversation.
Right.
Yeah,
Plus,
absolutely.
You can spot the passion from your associates.
Yeah. And that has been one of my big motivators over the years. Whenever I felt like I wasn't being included, I just moved on, and I, to the point where I had to kind of just do my own thing. And so I don't ever want to be that dude for somebody else that motivates me to go move on because they don't feel like they're being engaged or included in the process. So that's me projecting my own thing. And hopefully that's, a positive projection and does, and then what I've learned is some people really just don't want to be on the hot seat like that. They'd rather just kind of find their groove, put their headphones on, and that's fine too, but I don't ever want to not include somebody who wants to be included in that conversation.
Yeah, I don't think it's just you. That's what good leadership looks like, right? And that's what I coach a lot. That's what the coach part is. Coach a lot of people through it. One thing I used to always do, and I know a lot of people start to do this, a lot of people I work with, is get everybody's goals, 3 personal, 3 professional, and you can mix all that together and get them included. So there'd be, and I did that with all 135 people on my team. So I would know, like, oh, that person wants to cook more. They also want to present or pitch more. So in the same conversation, we're talking about pitching. I'm asking about, like, what are you cooking at home? What's the new recipe you got? So you get to know each other as people, as human beings. And you also know that I have your best interest at heart because I'm going to help you get better professionally and personally. So like, that's what I'm hearing from you is like, you want to get involved in their lives and help propel them forward. And one of the things I used to always say is like, look, I know this business, Netflix, you probably won't be at Netflix your whole career. This might not be your forever company. Mm-hmm. Whoever hires you next, I want them to say like, God damn, where did you come from? Like, you're the best at what you do, right? If they can say that, then I was successful in helping that person achieve their goals.
Nice. I love that. I'm going to have to hit you up for some coaching at some point. I love that. And that resonates. Yeah.
Anytime. But you're doing great, man. Like what I'm hearing, the team, it's no wonder these agencies are chasing you to build and scale these teams.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, that it was interesting, man, Leonard. Maybe you and I talked about this too. When I left Bond, I actually was very curious. I even said this to my wife, like, is anybody going to even know I'm gone?
Man, they knew so hard.
Dude, but I was so pickled in my Bond experience and so all in when I was there that when I left, I was just like, fuck, nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to even know, like this and that. And, and it turned out to not be that, which to my surprise.
Even the hot dog vendors outside my work knew. They're like, "Hear about Peter?" And I'm like, "I heard."
Yeah, it's funny because I actually was a hot dog vendor. So
when is this Netflix movie coming out? Just Peter.
And I rode a bike around Lake Calhoun with ice cream in it too. So I one summer I was an ice cream vendor, and the next summer I was a hot dog.
You're just out there doing side missions.
Yeah, I'm going to write a book on how not to go about building your career, how not to waste 10 years of your life trying to figure out what the fuck.
No, I think it just helps make who you are. You already have like a super chill vibe. For someone that's not from LA, you look so LA. It's taken hold of you.
Yeah, I guess I got to own that. It really has. Like when we came out here, I'm like, okay, fine. Like it took a minute. I was like, okay, fine. And it obviously was a good place for me to be, but it was not my vibe. I didn't feel like it was my vibe, but we live in Laurel Canyon now, and,
Yeah.
and that's kind of my vibe. And so
Yeah,
we're
you got
able
valley
to,
vibes for sure.
right. We get sort of away from the craziness of this city, but man, this city is also really just an extraordinary city too when you really dig in, and you walk out and you in January and it's 75 and sunny, and it's like,
It's
I mean,
always going to be. Yeah.
it's crazy like that. But no, so I really, this city has been very good, and to our whole family, and it's a great place to do what we do.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming here. I think that's it on my questions, Rico.
Yeah, no, thank you. This was a lot of gold. So I hope people really understand and cherish the stuff they just heard from you today, and go back and re-listen to some of these things, because there was so much in there about your story, how you had to figure things out, your later start in life, and like to get where you are, and now you're this coveted creative leader. It's been an amazing journey, and thank you for sharing it with us.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you guys, and it's been great to get to know you guys, and I admire what you guys are doing on your side too. So, yeah, happy to talk anytime, and love to get to know you guys better as we go.
Perfect. Well, I look forward to seeing you more. And it takes chutzpah to be creative. And thank you so much for your journey. If you see Peter in the street, get a strand of his hair. His power is inside of it. Okay, guys. That's
and buy him a hot dog.
And buy him a hot dog and an
Right.
ice cream if you're in Venice.
But veggie dog, though. Veggie dog.
A veggie dog.
Yeah.
You are LA boy. That's it, bro.
Super LA.
But thank you so much, Peter, for hopping on. Thank you, Rico, for co-hosting. And this has been another episode of Creative Chutzpah.
Thank
We'll
you.
see you next time.
Later. Thanks for listening to this episode of Creative Leadership with Heart. If you enjoyed the show, please like and subscribe. If you're ready to make huge, lasting change in your life, then what are you waiting for? What will your life look like if you took action today? What would it look like if you didn't? If you're serious and you're ready, book your free strategy session today, and let's make your future a reality.